So good morning, everybody. Can you hear me at the back? Okay, so before I get started, I have a couple of questions for you. The first question is, in the past 24 hours, how many of you have done this? Show of hands? Okay, great. Hopefully most. So my next question is, in the past 24 hours, how many of you have done this? Or maybe this? Or this? Or this? Show of hands? Not bad. Quite a lot of people. So over the next 15 minutes, I hope I can convince you that exercise can truly transform your life. And every day that you brush your teeth is a day you should also get in some exercise in your life. So let me talk a little bit about the health scenario in our country today. So India today, especially urban India and big cities like ours, is undergoing an epidemic of chronic diseases. Heart disease, diabetes, stroke, cancer, they're the leading causes of death. And we have the dubious distinction of being both the heart disease and diabetes capital of the world. What's even more sad is that these diseases, especially heart disease, strikes us at a much younger age. It's not unusual in our hospitals to see somebody who's 30 or 32-year-old coming in with a heart attack, which you don't normally see at such a young age in other societies. Anyway, amidst all of this kind of gloom and doom, there is good news as well. Research and scientists have seen over the past few decades that there is a medicine, a natural medicine, which can actually reduce the risk of heart disease, of stroke, of diabetes, many forms of cancer, by between 30 to 40 to 50%. And it's not very expensive. In fact, all it really does, or all it costs you, is this. Okay, it's a pair of shoes, and the answer is exercise. So all this data I just told you of exercise reducing heart disease by 30% and some forms of cancer and stroke by 30 to 40% is all factual data. It's not something that I decided to make up for this talk today. So exercise indeed has all of these effects. And you know what, with the trend now towards barefoot running, and people are not even using shoes, so actually all you need is this. You just need a pair of legs to get the health benefits of exercise. And for some people, they don't even have that. If you can see in this picture, circled in the red, this is Major D.P. Singh, and he's running without a leg, literally. His leg has been amputated and he's running with a prosthesis. So you don't even need legs really to exercise. All you need is heart, which I know you have plenty of. So that's really what is required. So let me tell you the story of Major D.P. Singh. He's a personal friend of mine, and his story is an interesting one. This is Major D.P. Singh at the age of 25. This is a picture of him taken in Kargil. So Kargil was where we had a war in 1999. He was at the line of control along with his troops one day in July 99. I think many of you were probably not even born then. And an enemy bomb sort of exploded right near him. He had to be immediately rushed to hospital where he was fighting for his life. In fact, on day 3 after his injury, the gangrene had spread through his leg and it had to be amputated to save the rest of the body. Major D.P. Singh spent an entire year in the hospital and he had 5 surgeries. He was kind enough to actually send me this slide which talks about all the surgeries and all the injuries he had, starting from his head to his toe, his head, his neck, his urinary bladder, his legs I told you about. At the end of that 1 year, he had 5 surgeries and his weight was 28 kilos. I'll show you another picture. This is his X-ray taken recently of his hips and his legs. So you see those little red flecks and the white markings next to them? That's shrapnel. That's pieces of metal. There are more than 50 pieces of shrapnel still in his body. Someone else in his situation, frankly, would have undergone severe depression. You hear of soldiers coming back with post-traumatic stress disorder. But Major D.P. Singh was different. He decided that if life or fate had put him in this particular situation, he's going to make the best of it. He told me that people, when they used to look at him, used to look at his disability. He wanted to show them his ability. So when he finally got back home after that year, he took his first step forward on his artificial leg. And then he took 10 steps. And then he walked 10 meters. And he walked 100 meters. And he walked a kilometer. And after he did that, he decided to run 10 meters and then run 100 meters. Anyway, to cut a long story short, he kept at it. And this is Major DP Singh running and finishing a half marathon, 21 kilometers. So I'm happy to tell you that not just one, he's done more than 20 of them all over the country, and in the process has set several Indian records for an amputee runner. In fact, in running circles, he's popularly known as the Blade Runner of India. Not only did he do this, what's more important is the message of hope that he sent forth. So he inspired a large group of people who have prostheses to actually take up exercise. He formed an organization called the Challenging Ones in 2011, and now there are more than 1,000 of them, and several of them themselves have gone out and taken part in races, in marathons. This is a picture of them at the Hyderabad Marathon about 2 years ago. And you may not be able to appreciate it, but most of them do not have one leg or even both legs. They've got prostheses. So if they can do it, I'm sure all of us certainly can. So this is one real life example of somebody whose life was truly transformed by exercise. Getting back to this slide about the burden of disease that we have. So whether it's heart disease, whether it's diabetes or any of this, one common thread or a common risk factor tends to be obesity. Again, we're undergoing an explosion of obesity in our country, especially among the youth. And we know that exercise, along with healthy eating, is one of the main factors which can prevent obesity. And if you are obese, it can actually help you fight it. So let me tell you another story. This is my friend Nitij. Nitij liked to live life large. I mean, literally. Okay, this is when he finished high school, he was tipping the scale at 160 kilos. And this was his weight for most of his adult life. Anyway, one day, a few years back, he decided that he really needed to make a change. He needed to make a transformation. And like Major Singh, he took it a step at a time. So he set himself some goals. He got on a diet which he could sustain for a long period of time. And he took up exercise in a very serious way. He spent several hours a day in the gym. Now, you don't need to spend several hours in a gym for everybody, but he needed to with the kind of weight that he had. For more than a year, his whole focus was getting his health right. He continued working, continued, of course, taking care of his family, but his health was his focus. And I'm happy to tell you, or rather show you, this is Nitij about 15 months later on the Bandra Worli ceiling, running the Mumbai Marathon, the full marathon, the 42 kilometers. So again, like Major DP Singh, what Nitij did was he paid it forward. He inspired all those around him. I personally know for a fact that he's inspired at least 100 people into taking up exercise and diet, those who've been very overweight. And he served as sort of a shining beacon for them that there is hope and this is what you can do. So I know many of you are sitting here right now probably thinking that, you know what, we're lucky we have both our legs. We're really too young to worry about heart disease and diabetes. And we're not really overweight. So, you know, what is exercise going to do for us? And I'm sure for most of you sitting here, the thing that you're most worried about are probably your 10th standard or your 12th standard board exams, right? I know that the school has some of the best results in the country in the 10th and the 12th. Not just country, I believe it's some of the best results in the world, right? So give yourselves a round of applause for that. Okay? So, you must be thinking, what can exercise do for you? So if the 10th and the 12th grade exams is what you're worried about, then I guess brain power is what you're worried about there as well. And the good news is that exercise can transform your life even in that direction. Let me tell you a little bit about how the brain works. So the neurons that we have, or our brain cells, we are born with them. And by the age of 2, almost all the neurons you'll have, even in adult life, they're already well developed. That's what scientists thought a few decades ago, that you can't really grow new neurons. But now, thanks to better imaging techniques, the neuroscientists have realized that you can continue growing neurons throughout your life. There's a region in the brain known as the hippocampus, in which your new neurons can grow. And the best stimulus for new neuron growth is, one is learning, which I know you're getting the best of, and the second is exercise, which I hope you're getting the best of. So let me show you one particular experiment. There have several been done. This was done in the United States a few years ago in 2010 and published. And what they did is they took two groups of rats or mice. Unfortunately, mice are always targeted to such experiments. You saw in the previous talk as well. So one group was just sort of hanging around in the cage all day long, not doing too much, sort of like couch potatoes that we've become. And the other group had what are called running wheels. Sort of imagine mini treadmills for rats, okay? So this group was running up and down on those treadmills all day long, and one group did nothing. After a few months, when they imaged their brains, this is what they found. So in the upper group are the non-runners, as they were called, and the lower group are the runners. So if you look at the right-hand side column, the rightmost column, you see those green tree-like sort of branches. Those are neurons. So what you can clearly see, that the group which was running, they had far more new neuron activity than the group which was not running. So clearly exercise doesn't just make you physically fitter and stronger, it also makes you mentally fitter and stronger. So the next logical question is, if exercise does all of this, how much do we really need to do? And here's the good news again. You don't need to run a marathon. You don't need to take part in the Olympics to reap the health benefits of exercise. You just need to start getting active. So even something like 30 to 60 minutes a day of brisk walking is great exercise for you. Now for a young group like yours, I hope that once you do 30 to 60 minutes a day of brisk walking, you will progress into playing a sport. Any sport, whether it's tennis, cricket, judo, cycling, going to the gym. It doesn't matter. People often ask me which is the best form of exercise, and I have a simple answer. The best form of exercise is one that you will enjoy, because then only will you stick to it for life. They also ask, what's the best time of day? Honestly, it doesn't matter. There are 24 hours in the day, and as long as you get to 30 to 40 minutes within those 24 hours, that's good enough. So for most of us, the commonest reason or the excuse, it's not a reason, it's an excuse for not exercising is what? You don't have the time, right? And I don't think it's a question of not having the time. It's probably a question of not having the priority. So if you're studying for an exam, if you're studying, let's say, 5 hours a day, I guarantee you that if you studied 4 hours and you exercise for an hour, you'll probably end up feeling a lot better, and I guarantee you'll do better in your exams as well. Try that. It'll work. So the first step is actually getting physically active. And speaking of activity, let me tell you about a study that I conducted about 10 years back. So this was a study that we did in a school in Bombay, and we took 1,000 children and we gave them pedometer. Pedometers are those old-fashioned step counters used to wear at the waist, or I did at least till a year ago. Now everybody wears these fancy Fitbits around their wrist, and they have apps on their phone which it talks to, right? So pedometers were step counters. So we took 1,000 of them, and we took children in the 7th, 8th and 9th grade. So the average age was 12, 13 and 14. And we made them wear these pedometers for 2 weekdays and 2 weekend days. And we measured the steps. And then we published this data and we compared it with the Western literature. And we were really surprised or sort of dismayed to find that our Indian school kids, the Bombay school kids, were walking far less than their Western counterparts, studies from Western Europe and North America. So the Indian kids were roughly sort of 10,500 at an average, while the Western ones were closer to 13,000. And this again was really surprising. Why? Because this school that we selected is very well known for its sporting prowess. And the kids that go to the school, a lot of them live in the area and they actually walk to school. So if this was the data in one of the most sort of physically active schools in the city, I really shudder to think what it might be like for the rest. So when we talk about physical activity, taking steps, getting more active, I think the first thing that we really need to do is what? Is get off our seats, right? So can I ask you to get off your seats for just a minute? Thank you. And let me tell you why I asked you. Let me see if I can change this slide. Okay. So this is the reason why. Because sitting is the new smoking. We all know by now all the ill effects of smoking over the years. So smoking literally affects every body part negatively, okay? Again, from head to toe. And recent research has shown that even sitting or being sedentary all day long has very similar effects. Now, I know that all of you are students and you sit in class all day. So I'm not asking you in the middle of your class to keep popping up and standing. I know if you do that, I probably won't be invited to speak to you all again. But the point is that outside your classroom hours, try and be sort of standing as much as you can. So even when you're studying, you can keep taking sort of standing breaks. Okay, you can sit down now. Thank you. So you can keep taking standing breaks, okay? So it's not that you need to be, standing all day long. But the more you stand, the more you move around, the more you're going to reap the health benefits of exercise, okay? So I hope that I've been able to sort of impart onto you the importance of exercise and how it can really transform your life. And before we end, I'm going to actually ask you just 2 more questions. In the next 24 hours, how many of you plan on doing this activity? Okay, hopefully everybody. And in the next 24 hours, how many of you plan on doing one of these activities? Show of hands. Okay, excellent. So once again, thank you for your attention. And I hope that I've been able to convince you that exercise can indeed transform your life. And every day that you brush your teeth is a day that you need to be physically active. Thank you very much.